first they promised they were going to fix it, and then 75% of finished is like trying to. We can't make any decisions tonight. Who's here?
You can eat up here. You can. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Okay, Mr. Jackson, you're taking the lead on this?
I am.
We are back. That was over 5 minutes.
So one of the questions that was before what you have before you is a copy of the original proposal as submitted by Stratford Theater, along with the contract we are in the middle of discussing. I'll sit down so you can hear me better. One of the bigger questions in the initial.
Excuse me. Ms. Manis? Okay.
Where's Vinny?
Here they come.
So one of the initial questions in looking at the original agreement was they were asking for a lease of the property. It's sort of a specific this thing. A lease is a possessory interest in the property. We were offering a license, which is simply a non-possessory interest in the property. So the question before the council is, do you want this to be a lease or a license?
Excuse me, do you have a copy of your questions?
I actually have them, but because I've given legal advice, I can't pass those out.
Okay.
Not in the open forum here.
So the question before the council is, do we want to give Stratford Stage Group possessory,
A lease, a standard
a
lease.
lease or a license?
And a license, and I would add to that, because one of the questions is the term. They had originally asked, Stratford Theater had asked for a 99-year term. What the current Mr. Kubik had looked at was doing a 10-year term with some additional options to renew. So the question is, for a group putting potentially $15 million into the theater, how much do you want to, what kind of term do you want to give them?
Okay, that will be the second question. Go ahead.
And one of the things that we put in there was a limitation on their right to assign. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that if you give a term like that, there has to be, if it's going to be a 20, 30, 40-year term, you have to understand some of the elements of members of the LLC may change. Do you want to have, does the council want to have an oversight in the names of who are members of the LLC?
Just a minute. First, so is lease the first question, or was
Lease versus license, which is basically if you lease the property, you basically are
I
giving.
understand. The second question is what?
What's the term of the lease? Or the
Term?
license?
How long?
How long?
Okay, next.
And then the next thing is one of the bigger questions that occurred was what's going to be included in it? For instance, do you want to include the White House in this license, or do you want to exempt it out? And if you exempt it out, you need to carve out, if you include it, then we have to deal with the Mighty Quinn and how they're treated. If you exclude it, you have to deal with how you're going to maintain it, and because right now, the Stratford Theater was offering to maintain the structure, plow the roads, fix the parking lots, cut the trees, cut the grass, that sort of thing. So you'd have to sort of define what portion of the property you want to be giving away to, and whether it's this or to any other developer. The idea was to come up with your vision of a contract for any developer coming in. There is an obligation to negotiate in good faith with the existing people. You have to come through something that you can pass out. If we cannot come to an agreement, we then have to go out to an RFP, but it will be the same contract you agree with in this process.
I have a point of information
Yes.
regarding the inclusion and exclusion. So something like the shoreline, which abuts the property, so that nothing could ever be developed on that specific shore, like a dock or things couldn't be built on that, not necessarily housing, but just any kind of anything. Would that be included in that? Is the water line, or does it go out so far?
I don't believe that the property goes up to the water. I believe that it goes to the road, but you'd have to get the property surveyed to be able to tell that for sure.
Okay, thanks.
The Houstonic Boat Club is right there.
Ms. Attorney Jackson, you'd indicated we have to negotiate in good faith and that there'd be an issue with that. Obviously, we've been in negotiations with them for over 11 months. And in the December 10th issue of the Stratford Star, a representative of the Stratford Stage Group stated, "We're willing to sign. Now we're at the point the council has to take a vote." That was in December. Is there any legal authority that you can actually cite that says that we're in any jeopardy here if we vote this up or down today? Can you cite a single case?
Well, so if you were going to take this and just look at the agreement and vote it down, the question was whether you negotiated in good faith. And from your perspective, if they believe that you did not negotiate in good faith, you could be subject to liability from Stratford Theater coming in and, at the very least, enjoining you and potentially getting damages.
Can you cite a single case?
And
And I've asked you for this authority prior to this meeting so that we could actually discuss it like gentlemen, but you ignored that request.
It's the John J. Brennan Construction Corporation versus Shelton in 187 Con 703.
And what was the site on that?
I believe it's 187 Con 703.
187 Con 703?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll look that up right now. Thank you, sir.
So we have a lease versus license term, limitation and rights to assign, and what to include or exclude from the property.
Right, and when you're dealing with whether the White House is included or excluded, we also have all the personal property that's in the White House. There's some arts, there's some costumes and things like that. How do you want those treated? Do you want them to be, do you want the developer to take possession of them as a custodian, or do you want the town to maintain them and have to insure them and all those things?
Okay.
One of the things about granting to a developer the use of the property is, do you want to have the town to still have the right to use it? The arts do projects there now, so you'd have to have some sort of an agreement with any developer to define what town use there would be and what percentage of the time. The other thing we want to talk about is how does a developer going to pay for this? One of the questions is that if it's a $15 million or $20 million renovation, do you want to require proof of funds? Do you want to have the town review all the plans? Do you want to allow financing with regard to the property? 'Cause not everybody's going to come in with cash. You also have some time for construction. How long do you want to let them do due diligence? How long do you want them to let do the construction? There's also insurance requirements. What do you want to insure it for? If the developer comes in, the developer takes possession of the property, do you want to have it be $3 million, $10 million, $20 million? What would it cost to replace the theater in the event there were a catastrophic loss? Right now, the concept is that somebody's going to come in and take over the theater. There's no revenue to the town other than the capital improvements to the theater. Do you want to have there be some revenue stream to the town out of the productions as put on by the theater? Or are they going to keep all the revenue based off of it because of their capital investment?
I have a question.
Yes.
I believe it's on page 4. It refers to the renovation of the theater, and it says, let's see, each of the 2 phases of development, we require separate such plans to be submitted in support of the specific work to be done. SSG covenants with the town that it will do the renovation work on the theater first and will not take out a building permit for construction of the inn and restaurant until renovation of the theater is 75% complete. My question to you is, a 75% complete theater usable? And where is the definition of 75% complete?
In that case, we're actually, one of the things we're working on is how you would define that, but basically it would be, there is a substantial completion definition in there somewhere, and so the idea would be, if it was close enough that the theater was looking like it would be completed, they then could apply for the zoning permits to build the theater. So there was no set number other than they would have had, they go to the council and say, we've produced it, we've done this much work to the theater. Council would say, okay, we now allow you to, we'll now look at the plans for approval for the next stage.
I understand that, but that's not the answer to my question. My question is, what constitutes 75% complete before you actually start plans and engage people to build the restaurant and hotel?
That would be something we would add to the contract for a definition for you, is to give us definition.
It's in there?
It says 75%, but you want an objective standard
Yeah,
of
but
how we
my
measure that.
definition of 75%
Right.
is that
That-
means the
that
theater
would
is still not usable.
Right, that would be something we would add to the contract for any developers, add a special, an objective limit as to how you know when they can start the next phase. If they allow the next phase, if you have that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, move.
Just a point of information on that 75%. I really think it was irresponsible for anyone to listen to something like this instead of this, the goal of the fact that Stratford Shakespeare Theater is there is to get the Shakespeare Theater going. That should have been 100% if you're going to enter with any group. So to say 75%, that's preposterous. It doesn't even make no sense.
Well,
That's just me. You know,
that's-
anybody else, I mean, the
There was-
goal is not the hotels and the restaurants. The goal is the theater. So get the theater done. So I can't support nothing like that.
which is why we're having a conversation. This was, the prior chair thought that at least getting it most of the way done before they could start their next application. Your position could be no, they have to complete the theater in total before they go to anything next.
Okay. What are the other questions?
The theater operations, we had put in some objective levels for productions of shows. Does the town want at least a certain number of minimal annual productions? Do you want to require that some of the productions be Shakespearean? And do you want any limitation on the types of plays? I mean, we don't want to have something that's immoral or offends the town in any way. So that we want to come up with a plan for how many shows, what the shows are, and what the requirements are on a given year. Then the question is, what happens if they don't perform? If they don't put on enough performances, do you want to terminate the contract? Do you want to give them a right to cancel? How do you want to redress them having as I said, not doing enough plays or not doing the right types of plays? The next question.
I have a question with that, because, and maybe this is for Mr. Gresco, because we just got approved for that grant. They got approved for that grant, and there are specific requirements within those grants regarding, how the money's used, who has the money, who doesn't have the money, and if property changes hands. So how would those kind of requirements, or would they impact that particular grant that we received? Do you happen to know, or do you know, Attorney?
I don't know the specifics of that grant, so I can't speak to it. But in talking with the prior chair, we wanted to come up with a set of objective number of shows. What we don't want to do is have somebody build a theater and then just sit on it or not do enough plays to make it, to give it a chance to be viable. And then the question was, if they're not doing the proper plays or enough plays, do we want to have some kind of remedy? Does the town want to step in and take over? Do you want to have it? Cancel the contract? What do we want to do to be able to come back and say that wasn't the right thing? Another thing to think about is naming rights for the theater. The SSG had asked to have naming rights for the theater. They wanted to call it, whatever corporate sponsor they could get. Do you want to allow that? Do you not want to allow that? And do you want to have any limitations on it? If you allow it, do you want to allow it to be, you can name it as long as the town has the ability to say yes or no to it? And then the question is, what happens when it's over? At the end of that term, do we just terminate, at the end of let's say you do a 10-year term. At the end of the 10-year term, do they just simply turn over the keys and back to the theater? Or do we have any extensions if it's going forward?
Just a quick question. You saying that the previous council was okay with changing the name if necessary, according to what you're saying there?
That was part of their original RFP.
Okay. Like I said, this whole contract is just raggedy, man. The whole thing. How do you change the name to Shakespeare Theater? That's the Shakespeare Theater.
What we are right now, though, keep in mind, is we have a vendor who is here. We need to at least discuss it.
Okay, are there other questions for us to consider?
That's basically the summary. What I wanted to do is get some feedback from the council as to what things, to Mr. Kadim's point, if you absolutely positively won't do them, I need to know how to put that into a contract to say I absolutely positively won't do that. That would be true with the White House. That would be true with who maintains the grounds. any of these provisions.
I would need to see into this contract, or I would like to see, and hope I'm supported by the rest of the council, a 99-year lease for the Mighty Quinn Foundation to maintain the White House. It's excluded from the contract completely.
There's actually a separate license for the Mighty Quinn that's still active.
I understand, but it expires in August, and I want to make sure that that house remains untouched as part of this contract. It's a separate entity, in my opinion. I understand that it needs to be upkept and things need to happen. We need to figure that out, but somehow I'd like to make sure that that's put in there.
And that's part of the question is how is that treated?
I would echo the 10th District Councilor's sentiment on honoring the Mighty Quinn Foundation and the work it does. I think it's probably, they're the leading edge of what we're doing here. They're the ones who are going to make it happen because they're laying the groundwork. Follow-up question to your previous citation of John Brennan Construction Corp. I just looked that up, and it says that all that is required of officials is that they observe good faith and accord all bidders just consideration, thus avoiding favoritism and corruption. An honest exercise of discretion will generally not be disturbed. Courts will only intervene to prevent the rejection of a bid when the obvious purpose of the rejection of the bid is to defeat the object and integrity of competitive bidding. No justiciable right is created by an invitation to bid if the authority reserves the right to reject bids. Did the town of Stratford reserve the right to reject bids?
I don't have that in front of me, but
Well, I have that in front of me.
Okay, and sorry.
And it says reservation of rights. The town in its sole and absolute discretion reserves the rights to reject and/or all responses for whatever so reason it deems appropriate. Furthermore, the town in its sole and absolute discretion shall be the sole judge in determining whether to enter into a contractual relationship with any respondent. In light of that, do you think that there's actually any real liability, other than that anyone can sue us for anything, if we actually rejected this contract tonight?
But you accepted the bid. The bid was accepted. That's how we got to this point. You didn't, but it was done by the prior council. So the bid was accepted. So yes, you have the right to reject the bid, but once the bid is accepted, it gives us an obligation to negotiate in good faith. If negotiation in good faith do not render a contract, then so be it, and we move on and you go to a new RFP. What I want to do is be able to say to when I present you with a contract, I want to say to you, what terms do you want, what terms do you don't want, and so we can continue the conversation with SSG in good faith. If we can't come to an agreement, we can't come to an agreement, but at least we will have gone through the process in good faith to try to come to a resolution, because they have been chosen to negotiate with the town.
I live here. There's a lot of people that are invested in this SSG project, right? That are friends of Stratford, that are invested in Stratford. We owe it to the people who are invested in seeing this bid through to negotiate it in good faith. I think revising whether we can go back to the bid or not is a moot point. I think we need to move forward. Otherwise, we're just getting caught in the mud. Personally, now I'm no lawyer, but I'm just saying there's enough people emotionally invested in this throughout town that we need to see it through. The last council put time into it. Everybody's put time into it. We're here now to put time into it. I think that we should give it its due and just move through it. You know, if you're saying that you don't like things, I think we need to push forward and negotiate in good faith. We owe
I
it to the
just
people.
want to ask Mr. Jackson to repeat what happens if this cannot be negotiated in good faith.
If this council goes to SSG with a good faith, with your concerns and how you'd like this to work, negotiate in good faith with them, and cannot come to an understanding, and I caution everybody, whatever contract you have will be used for this developer or any future one. Come up with, we will lease out or we'll license out the theater under these terms. If SSG can't agree to them, then they have the right to walk away. There was never an obligation to sign a contract. We had an obligation to negotiate a contract. If we put in terms that SSG will not accept that are different than their initial proposal, there is some chance that they'll sue you basically on bad faith. I don't know that, but that's why I caution everybody to negotiate in good faith, come up with a contract that this council, in its opinion, is acceptable to the town, and we can then see if we can negotiate on whatever terms you propose with SSG to come to resolution. If we can come to a resolution that's acceptable to you and acceptable to SSG, then we've done our job.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
The discussion we're having right now, the comments that are being made, can they be used in a court of law? Should we be sued? In other words,
Absolutely.
Anything
why-
that's said right now.
Hence why we asked for going into, executive session, was to have a frank conversation. I have no problem doing this in public, but I'm afraid that we're putting you in jeopardy to get sued, because if you say, I won't accept it, but Mr. Kadim, if you say that may come back and they said, I won't sign it. Well, okay, they're going to say, we're not negotiating in good faith. I wish to have a negotiation in good faith so that we can clearly not avoid any liability here. Whatever the terms you come up with are, I'll propose them to the other attorney.
I just want to be very clear, since you said Mr. Kadim. You throw this in somebody's face for 5 minutes and say, hey, we should jump on board. That's not right.
No, sir,
No,
I'm not
no,
asking
let me finish. You said what you said. What you said was very clear. That's not right. So just because we object to certain things, we still negotiating in good faith. That don't mean I have to bend over and accept it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, sir. I'm actually
No, I'm
saying-
just being plain to you, because, you're saying that the other council did what they did, and that's fine.
And you'll do what you'll do.
But I'm not the other council, is what I'm saying to you. So based upon that reality, even though these 29 pages was given perhaps to the other group, was they given to the other council?
They were negotiating it.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you, was these 29 pages given to the other council?
Those exact pages with those changes? No, there's been change since they last saw.
No. Okay, so no is the answer. So now, I'm not making a decision tonight at all on anything, and we're just basically discussing it. So for you to say to me that I'm liable for saying X, Y, Z, no, I'm not liable, because I am not accepting you choosing to say, hey, Mr. Kadim, you said this, so we're going to take you to court. I'm a human being. I say what I want to say as long as it's legal.
If I may, sir, I wasn't saying that. I wanted to have this conversation on the contract.
I understand, but it seems like you're trying to scare me into something. I'm not afraid.
Can I suggest?
I'm actually just the opposite. I want to basically have the council be able to see the contract, go through the choices, come up with a fair assessment of what they want to do, and go from there.
We have the
Madam
question-
Chairman, I'd like to ask a question regarding term, because the term 99 years has been bandied about, but I'm looking on page 11 of this particular contract, and it only mentions 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
They had asked for 99 years. The prior council chair had said that was way too long, did a 10-year term with some additional term option to renew. So no, it's a 10-year term with, I believe, 5 additional terms, maybe it's 4 additional terms, with 4 renewals.
Yeah, it's renewable, but it says 10 years. But my question is, they went to the state and said they had a 99-year.
They went to, excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Okay. And I have another question.
No, what she said was, they went to the state and said they had a 99-year.
Yeah, SSG.
SSG told this.
I'm not aware of that, but no, that was not, but they had asked for that, but that was not what the prior council chair, had agreed to.
May I suggest a process
Okay.
here?
I-
And that would be that we have a special
have one more.
meeting just on Shakespeare, and table this for now, and then schedule a special meeting.
second.
Because
Second.
I just want to say, we're on page 4 of a 12-page agenda, and it's
Yeah,
a quarter of
I just want to ask for one thing. Is it possible to get a copy of your 501c3 application for SSG? They said they have one.
I can request one.
Thank you. Okay. Do you need a motion?
Could we table this, please? Ali Kadim, move that we table this to a special meeting.
Second.
Attorney Jackson?
Discussion.
Attorney Jackson? I've got the 501c3. I'll make copies and give them to you.
Attorney Jackson, I have one question before this thing goes off. Are the things that were said here tonight, will you take them and work with them, or is it just?
No, I'd like to have you have whatever your special meeting is and come up with a White House meeting example. I would like that not to be included, and therefore I will then say, this is what we have and this is what we're doing.
Okay.
So I'm using this as a method of finding out what you'd like it to say.
And I'd like to know specifically, if there's an inventory, maybe Mayor Harkins would know, about the inventory of the White House. What is the artwork and the artifacts that are there? Because those artifacts are sprinkled all over town. So what's in there now? What's left?
I don't know that there's an inventory, but what we were trying to do in this agreement was to say that the Arts Commission would go inventory it before it was turned over to
The who?
anybody else. I think the Arts Commission?
The Arts Commission.
Well, there was a question. Somebody from the town had to inventory it before it went anywhere.
Yeah,
Those items are not on this agenda, and
Okay.
so we have a motion to table. All in favor of tabling this, and I promise we will have a special meeting on this particular subject
No.
soon. Okay, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
All opposed?
no.
No.
2, okay, I vote aye, and so 8-2, the motion is tabled. We will have a special meeting on this. Okay, 16 Goodwin Place.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I hope this matter will be comparatively more simple than the last one. This involves a ramshackle, rundown piece of property which the town took in a tax foreclosure. The last council wanted to have it be put back on the tax rolls in a manner that would allow, that would obviously fix it up, and so that it would, add to the grand list. A local contractor had proposed buying it for the amount of $5,000. And part of the proposal was that that contractor was going to take down the house and abate the asbestos that was in that house within 6 months of taking title. When the contractor went in the house, so let me backtrack. So my authority was to respond to the contractor that the council would accept his $5,000 bid, providing he took the house down and abated the asbestos problem within 6 months. When he actually got inside the house to check it out, he indicated that the asbestos, there was a lot of asbestos there, and it would cost him more money than he wanted to spend in order to do that, and so he said he could no longer bid $5,000 for the property. He could only bid $2,500 for the property. Well, that's a counter offer. We didn't have a deal, and that's why I brought it back here. So there are essentially 3 alternatives that I could see. One is to, agree to his counter offer. Secondly is to reject his counteroffer, and keep the property. But if the town keeps the property, we really need to do something with the house and to abate the problem. And the third option is that there is possibility of perhaps to donate it to an organization that will rehab it. So essentially, I'm asking for direction from you based on the counter offer of the contractor.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
has there been has Habitat for Humanities expressed an interest in this?
They have expressed an interest in it, Mr. Chase, and the only hesitation I have there is with the contractor. Well, it was important to the last council that the house be taken down and the asbestos problem be abated with some speed. Habitat for Humanity certainly has expressed an interest. I'm not sure whether they would be willing to incur the same conditions that were attached.
Madam Chairman, in light of that, maybe we should table this and the town attorney find out from Habitat if they'd be interested?
I second it.
I'm sorry, can I just ask Mr. Jackson, I thought Habitat had expressed a firmer interest than is what's being indicated. They are very interested. So,
Well, the question was whether or not they're as interested. If they are that interested, does that include the removal of the facility and taking care of the asbestos problem?
That's what I was going to ask. No, that's the same question you were going to ask.
Yes, David, they are aware of the asbestos problem, and they have indicated that they would be amenable to removing the asbestos in the property.
Madam Chairman, I withdraw my motion to table and ask that the attorneys go into negotiation with Habitat for Humanities.
I second that.
Okay,
I thought they
second?
were going to give it to them.
Well, providing they take care of the asbestos, you know,
Right,
add that
right.
in there.
I'm
I mean,
sorry?
sir, they would take it, however we got to that point, they would take it in its current condition.
So,
Okay, all
Mr.
right.
Chase, let me understand, you want the town attorney to negotiate and develop a contract with Habitat for Humanity in order to turn the property over to Habitat for Humanity?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
If I may, sir, is there a value to the, do you want them to pay for it, or do you want to gift it
No.
to them?
Donate.
Do they usually pay for things?
They
For
pay,
properties?
they usually pay a nominal sum, like $1. I mean, they usually just take them off the hands of the city of Bridgeport
I
and
see.
rehab them and take care of them.
Madam Chair, in the interest that Habitat would be willing to take the building down and have to remediate it, $1 is good.
Okay.
With the provision that they can remediate it properly.
I will ensure that that be part of it, and I will bring you a contract for the
Okay.
next meeting.
I just want to introduce the correct name for the local habitat that you're going to possibly donate this to. It's Habitat for Humanity of Coastal Fairfield County.
That's correct.
Yes.
And for the record, would there be a time limit on when this was going to be done? It was important to the last council that it be done rather speedily. That's why there was that 6-month stipulation.
Is it possible to negotiate that within a month?
I could negotiate a time limit to, that they'll get
With-
it down. They were, I think that they'll do it pretty quickly. I can't tell you the exact timing, but I'll come back to you with a report.
Okay, and then you'll report to us next
I will
meeting.
report to you next meeting.
Also, Madam Chair, I didn't know if it was possible, but with the end game focused in on the possibility of a Stratford family, actually.
Yeah.
getting-
I will ask that they could make that a priority.
Can I also, I don't know if I can do this, but.
Excuse
that-
me.
I-
I served on Habitat for Humanity for a number of years. St. James had a branch of Habitat for Humanity, which we supported. I don't think you can tell them to take a Stratford family. They perhaps would, but I know they have a line of people waiting for homes.
Perhaps it
So,
could
Ms.
be
Ma-
made a condition to the donation, that
Well,
it
if I
be
may- if I may,
set
let me-
aside
let me-
for a Stratford
Let
family.
me ask them if that is something we can add to it, and I'll be able to report back what their response is. I don't want to guess for them.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Ms. Manis had
There-
to speak.
I'm just thinking about young people in our town, and I know many of my friends have done Habitat for Humanity. I'm just hoping that the community services, or that we can link up with a community organization in our town to do outreach, to get the volunteers that work in that to be from town, so that we give our youngsters some hands-on experience with building and doing all of this, because it can lead to jobs. So I would hope that we can do with the high schools. I don't know if that's possible or how to go about it, but we need to make sure that our kids are working on that, our
I will
19,
ask them.
20s.
So as I understand this, we want Stratford family if possible, Stratford workers if possible. Did I miss anything else?
Just inviting them to
That'd
volunteer.
be a Stratford project,
Yeah, I will do my best then.
Stratford-focused project. Okay, is there a second to have the town attorney do such?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 10-0. Okay, thank you very much. 576 East Broadway.
You get me for that one, too.
You're up.
This is a
Madam Chairman, before, I think you should entertain a motion to take this from the table for discussion purposes.
Okay. Is there a motion to take this from the table?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking this off of the table?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
This is a property at 576 East Broadway. The RFQ was put out in 2015 for a developer to work with the town and the EPA and the Department of Environmental Protection for the state of Connecticut to take the site, which was a Superfund site, and be able to, EPA is going to cap it. But because of the soil conditions, we need to have the qualified developer to work with the EPA to put in a framework underneath the cap, which will hold the support of weight of a building which will be built there after the property is transferred. We had one bidder take the bid. We've entered into a contract, which I believe you've received, which was for the purchase of the property subject to some conditions. One of the conditions was the EPA, who believes they're putting between $3 and $4 million into the property, was not willing to pay the total cost to the town of Stratford of the $400,000 it took to foreclose the property, but is willing to take the purchase price and split it, which would be $250,000 of the $500,000 purchase price to the town. The other half would go to the EPA to reimburse them for their expenses in the remediation.
Attorney, you're talking about the sale price?
Sale price is $500,000.
What my reading of the contract was that there was also a $400,000 lien tax due,
So there was a
and
$400,000.
that was what the EPA had wanted to share. And
Yes.
not the 500,000.
No. They're saying they'll split the purchase price. So purchase price of the property is $500,000. We had asked for the full cost of the town's foreclosure process and the back taxes and everything else that it accrued. They said normally they do the reimbursement on a pro rata basis based on their investment versus the town's investment, which they said they'll invest $3 to $4 million, and we've invested $400,000. So they're asking to split the $250,000 purchase price, half to the town, half to the EPA. With that, EPA will release their lien.
And did they want part of the 400,000 that was?
$400,000. We're getting $250,000 back on our $400,000 investment. There are some contingencies that need to be met by the developer. They need to come to an agreement with EPA, and I do know that they're in conversations with them. They need to go get zoning approval, whatever would be located in that, and do all the normal procedures for getting approvals for development, land use. They get to go look at the property, et cetera. The question is whether or not the council wants to sell this property to this developer under these terms and to split the cost with EPA and get $250,000 back, but then a property which is environmentally remediated and would be back on the tax rolls.
I just had a question, piggybacking on Councilwoman Tenzil, just Mitzi, that's what she likes it better. The $400,000, are we responsible for a period? That's the bottom line.
We
Just yes or no?
No.
Do we have to pay that? Yes or no?
You've already paid it.
So we paid it. So now you want to split the 250, the 500,000 into 250.
So when I say you paid it, meaning when the property was foreclosed, the town was owed $400,000. The town now owns the property in lieu of the taxes that were due.
I understand now. Thank you.
EPA will come in and remediate.
I understand. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, wait, is there a motion?
Before there's a motion, I have two questions for Attorney Jackson. First, was there an 824 review of this?
Yes.
And second, is there any reason why this needs to be approved today versus, say, at our March meeting?
EPA has suspended all discussions and work on it until there's an approval, and EPA has said that the funds are there until they're not. So if we wait too long, probably March is fine, but if we wait too long, the EPA will just move on to a new project.
Well, I would then,
It's there,
I move to table this until our March meeting.
I'll second.
all in favor of tabling?
Aye. I guess to be clear, you
Wait.
there was a motion to table to the March meeting, which would actually be a motion to postpone till a date certain, being the March meeting. So you can either table it, and it will remain on the table until it's taken from the table during the session of this body, or you can postpone till a date certain, with a date certain being specified by Councilman Dumas, the March meeting, where it automatically appears on the agenda and it does not have to be taken from the table.
We don't have.
So I think his motion was actually to postpone to the March meeting, a date certain, the March
I would
meeting.
certainly accept that as a friendly amendment to the motion, if the second would do so as well.
Kit, is there an opportunity at this point to ask the mayor a question regarding this?
Now, once the motion is made and seconded, you can only discuss the propriety of postponing it to that certain date.
I am going to withdraw the motion to permit Councilor Chase to ask the question, if the second would agree to withdraw it as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if we delay this, does this in any way affect the $250 million that we anticipate the EPA is going to use to clean up the Raymark site and all of the other sites that they've identified in town?
I don't have that answer. However, regarding this specific site, I wouldn't wait on it. I'd move on it. They're looking at about a $4 million remediation to a site that's contaminated to be capped. We have a developer that's waiting for an answer. I think by tabling this is a bad signal to the developer. I think it's a bad signal to the EPA. I'd rather take swift action so Attorney Jackson can move forward with it, and we can move forward with the developer going through the zoning process to try to get this site developed, but more importantly, remediated. So I am a little concerned with that, how it's going to impact that particular site, because that is one of the many sites that are Superfund designated in Stratford, and we have a tremendous opportunity to get one of them cleaned up and off the list.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So given that the motion to postpone is off right now,
No.
correct? Or is it
Well,
still on?
I withdrew it so that Councilor Chase could ask a question, and now I'm going to move to postpone this to a date certain, being our regular March meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to do a roll call vote on this one. Joe, you vote to, do you vote to move it to next March? To the March meeting?
No.
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Alan?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No. So that's 5-5, I think?
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Mayor, you get to break that tie. Are we moving it to March, or are we doing this now?
Do I break the tie? I thought it was regarding ordinances. On a procedural vote, do I break the tie? This is a legal counsel question.
It's a tie. He can vote.
It's a tie.
Motion fails then. Hang on.
They're discussing.
Yeah, we're just going to check the charter as to the mayor's tie-breaking authority.
Yeah, the charter specifically, this microphone will work. The charter in section 1.2, duties of mayor, paragraph 5, attendance at council meetings with full right of participation in the discussions and deliberation of the council, but without the rights to vote on ordinance and resolutions, except in the event of a tie vote. So the mayor has the power to vote on ordinances and resolutions in the event of a tie vote of 5-5. This is not an ordinance or ordinance.
Point of procedure then for clarification, then a 5-5 vote would then be, would.
5-5 vote would be a failure of the motion.
Right, motion
Yes.
fails.
Motion fails, okay. So, is there a motion to allow allow for the sale here to the,
It would be for the mayor to execute the contract, I presume, and enter into the contract with the current developer.
okay. Is there a motion to allow for that?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Excuse me, I didn't even hear, because you went across me, I'm sorry.
The motion would be to allow the mayor to enter into to execute the contract that you've seen with the current developer, to let them begin their process of getting approvals.
Basically, everyone already looked over this, everyone knows about this before we vote on it, right? Everyone knows about this capping. Yeah, okay.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Did someone make the motion?
Second.
Okay, Phil,
Did someone make the motion? For the record?
yes,
Thank you.
I seconded.
Thank you.
okay. Discussion?
I'd like to say something. That's possible. I attended the hearing regarding this, and remember that asking questions about this and hearing about it. And I want to make sure, I know you say we're ready to go and that the developer wants something to go. If we dig there and we find more, and it's more extensive than what we imagined, which has happened before here in Stratford, then what? And that's my big question. And then what happens to the community around it? Are the people ready? Are they informed? We're voting on something that's in their backyard, and we're digging up dead bodies, basically, and we're digging up the past, and are they ready for it? I want to know that the neighborhood is ready for that.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have a discussion / point of information for Attorney Jackson. Paragraph 2B, if you read that, does that necessarily, the way I read that could possibly leave the town still on the hook for some of the environmental hazards versus, fully assigning them to the purchaser.
No, in fact, we're transferring, we've transferred to them the property with all hazards if they take it. Now, remember, they're going to do an environmental assessment on their own. But this is it basically talks about, that's actually talking about the exemption from the Transfer Act, which would normally apply to the town. And we've pushed all responsibility for the Transfer Act onto the buyer in this contract.
That doesn't belong.
Okay. The mayor would like the health department to speak to some of the health issues, please.
I'm going to ask Angie Boissevain to come up to answer some of your questions, Councilwoman Manis.
Hi. Andrea Boissevain, Director of Health for the town of Stratford. So the question was, would there be any public outreach before work would be done? And as an EPA project, they often have to go through a public comment period, and they will have Jim Murphy and some of the other people that you folks have met when we've talked about the Raymark project would come, and fact sheets would be issued, and I don't know if there would be a series of community meetings, but letting folks know, because 576 600 East Broadway is abutted by, I think, Blakeman Place, Harris Court, and some other streets. And so I don't believe that waste is actually being excavated, although I'd have to look at what the remedy looks to, but they're looking to cap. So I don't know if there are other questions. I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you.
So they don't know right now. They aren't aware. There's been no flyers. There's been no outreach. It would all happen once the project goes through. Correct.
Well, I know certainly that back in the day, they knew that that property was on the Superfund list and a remedy was going to be put in place at some point in time. But certainly, and the health department often will be the ones that, put the word out, either, flyers or, door to door or, calling a community meeting to let folks know that there's going to be activity there. But I think that's important that they know that there's work that's going to be being done in their backyard.
Yep. That was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that work was done. There's been new people at the community.
No. So there was some a proposed plan that was put out, I think maybe 2 years ago, and then EPA is putting out a proposed plan probably in March of work that needs to be done along Ferry Boulevard and some of that. So there'll be certainly outreach as part of that. Yeah. So I mean, and it may be that it's treated as a separate project.
We weren't sure about that last time.
Yeah, I have a question about the waste also.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kadim was next.
Yeah, just a simple question. Shouldn't we inform the people that live there before we make this decision, is what I'm saying, that they know what's there, instead of just go ahead, let's vote and do this, and then they say, well, why'd you vote on that?
Well, I mean, a remedy needs to be put in place anyway.
I understand that, but shouldn't they know that? Just like when they was going to put the dog pound around the corner from my house, I knew about it, so I went and fought against it. So, or animal shelter, whatever you want to call it. I live on Larkin Court. They wanted to put it on Harding, right around the corner. Thank God that they did put paperwork out there. Stephanie Phillips let us know what was going on in our district. So I think based upon just me thinking about that, it should really be tabled to the next meeting until you guys can inform the public of what's going on. Just my overview, that's all. Will you inform the public? That's the question.
I mean, this was part of a proposed plan that, my memory is, not great about if it was 2 years ago or whatever, that a remedy would need to be put in place for this.
I understand the remedy part of it. The question really was really plain. I just got here 2 months ago. Will you inform the public of what needs to be done now? Not 2 years ago. Just from now, since I'm the person who have to vote on it now, I want to know if they know now what's going to happen or what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So can you do that, or will you do that, or?
I mean, we will do the outreach. I'm not, in terms of the contract actually being, voted on, that's not really
yeah, but you're the health
my
department,
issue.
right?
Yes, I am the health department, but
And
but the contract part is not my issue. My issue is that when work is going to be done, I need to be able to go out and do the outreach.
I understand. that-
Ms. Antozo?
No, just a
my
second, I'm
question-
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you for answering the question, but I feel comfortable knowing that they know what's going on in their own backyard before it happens. That's just me.
Okay, my question has to do with the waste itself. The property I know has a lot of trees on it. My question is the waste that close to the surface, though, that the removal of the trees, which would have to happen, would disturb the waste? Do you know?
In terms of, I mean, I haven't looked at the map of where the waste is. I know that there are pockets, and some of them are at depth, and some are more closer to the surface. So, I'm not comfortable answering that question in terms of,
Okay.
I'm going to move to table this.
I'm sorry, I wasn't quite done with discussion.
I moved to table. That's a privileged motion.
We
I
just
second
voted.
it.
Okay. All in favor of tabling?
Was it seconded?
He seconded.
Wally Kadeem.
Wally Kadeem seconded it. All in favor of tabling? I guess this is indefinitely now, rather than moving to a particular date. Mr. Gresco, let's do a roll call vote.
No.
Table.
Yes.
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 Indefinite?
Well, it's, the last time it was, we were postponing it to March, and now it's not necessarily March. Last time we moved, we voted on postponing it to March, and that was a 5-5 vote. So now it's being tabled, not necessarily until
I
March.
raised a point of procedure. I asked the town attorney. This means that we can bring it up in March, correct? If we remove it from the table in March.
Councilman Dumas is correct. There are two
Yes.
options. One is to table an item, the other is to postpone till a date certain. The difference being if this body moves to table an item, it remains on the table until the body removes it from the table at any subsequent regular
Yes.
meeting, and that would include the March meeting. To postpone till a date certain is different in the sense that you can postpone it till whatever date you choose during the term of this council, whether it's next month, 6 months from now, and it will remain off the agenda until the date that you specified in the motion to postpone till a date certain. So while the motion is to lay this on the table, it can be taken up at the next meeting of this body, or any meeting of this body,
Aren't we in the
any
middle
regular
of a
meeting
vote?
of this body.
I also have a point of information. Is the reason why the
I'm
chair
sorry,
is
I thought you
asking?
moved to table, so let's vote on that.
Well, this is a point of information. I can raise a point of information. Is there a reason, or a point of procedure, actually, is there a reason why the chair is going through roll calls and starting with Mr. Gresco, where, customarily we always go through the orders of the
I
districts?
can do whatever, believe I can do whatever I want in terms of a roll call vote. Just in terms of a roll call vote, in terms of where we start. I don't know, Ms. Brian, do I always have to go the same order?
You can call the roll call in any order that you choose,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Okay, so that answers that question. It was on the record that I could do whatever I wanted with respect to the order of a roll call vote. Okay, so we're moving to table, so we're taking that vote. Mr. Gresco, do you want to table?
Yes.
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 No.
No, okay. I think that passed, 6-4. Okay, it's tabled.
We have 6.
Did I count right?
Yes.
6-4. Okay. The lease regarding Short Beach Golf Course concession. Do I have a movement to executive session for this?
Yes, there should be a motion to take up this item at this meeting.
Is there a motion for executive session?
Well, no,
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead. You have to have a motion of some type
Yeah.
before you
Is
just,
there a motion to have executive session?
you have to take it off I think you have to take it off the table first to the chairman.
Motion to take it off the table.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking this off the table?
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion for executive session?
Motion for executive second. Second.
Okay, all in favor of
Was
executive?
there a second to that?
I thought I heard a second.
I seconded it.
I think the motion should include, to the chairman, that the reasons have to be on the record as to why this body would be going into executive session, and also the record has to note the individuals that will be going into executive session with the council.
Okay. The people who will be going into executive session include Mr. Jackson, Mr. Hodgson, Mr. Leclerc, Mr. Florek. Okay. And the reasons for the executive session are because it's privileged negotiations.
We need to come up with the terms of the lease for the Short Beach concession, including any changes, any step-ups in cost, any requirements or any specific requirements that council would like to add to the lease.
I do have some debate on this motion. We're saying for negotiating a contract that's not a exemption under FOIA. So I would like a little clarity here. I see no reason why this too can't be discussed in open forum. This isn't rocket science here. We're not, negotiating the Geneva Conventions. This is the lease for a concession stand. So I don't know what the real legal basis for it is, because contract negotiations is not a valid reason to go into executive session. I may have won cases on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Would the attorneys like to answer that?
To go into executive session, it has to be one of these statutory allowed reasons, and that includes the only two that would arguably apply to this would be discussion of the selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by the town of Stratford when publicity regarding such site, lease, sale, purchase, or construction would adversely affect the price, or discussions of communications protected by the attorney-client relationship, written communications.
Is there any reason to believe that this would actually impact the price if we'd held this out in public debate? Is there any evidence of that?
Well, you can discuss the terms of the lease, and you can discuss what parameters you want to give to me when going out. But if you say to me, look, we think that the initial amount is not enough, we think you ought to do a step up of 3%, but if you won't agree to that, go to 2%, the person here is going to go, well, okay, I know you're authorized to give me 2%. So I can negotiate it here with you, but you're not going to theoretically get the best deal for the lease of the property if the folks who are the concessionaires happen to be here and are listening to our discussions. I'm okay doing it in the open if you'd like to. Just understand that they're going to hear exactly what we're saying, and they're going to know the terms, and therefore we can't maybe get the best deal we might normally get. But that's up to this council.
Attorney Jackson, are you familiar with the case law on this?
FOIA?
Are you familiar with the case law on this exemption?
I'm sorry. It seems that, repeatedly we're talking about reasons to go into executive session. So this is the second time. And it seems that you're unhappy with perhaps the mayor's choice of town attorney in that office. But that's a very different issue.
No, well, one, the chair's participating in debate, which you generally aren't supposed to do. But I'm not have any issue with the town's choice for, well, I do have issues with certain attorneys. My issue is with doing the public's business in a closed room when it should be done out in the open. That's my issue.
Okay.
If you'd like to go through the terms of this lease in the open, I don't have a problem with it. Again, whatever we decide will be telegraphed to the potential lease tenant, and they're going to know what you want. Now, if it's just, I want this, this, and this, and they come in and say no, then they'll say no, and we'll go back to an RFP and to do it again. So I have no problem doing it in the open as long as everybody understands that what they're going to hear what our terms are, and they're going to say yes or no to them. So, for instance, one of the questions is the initial offer was $25,000 a year for profit.
Excuse me, Attorney Jackson.
Yes.
So did we make the decision to go in
No, is there a movement to go into, I'm sorry, is there a motion to go into
if you're going to
executive
discuss it out here without us making that, I prefer personally to discuss it in
Okay.
Right, I was just
executive
making an
session.
example. I wasn't
Yeah,
giving
don't give an example. I don't need one, but if you want to, go ahead. Do your-
Okay, and is there a second to the motion to go into, are you making a motion to go into executive session?
Executive
Is there a second? We have a second. Okay, all in favor of going into executive session for this?
No.
Yes.
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 No.
Yes. Okay, let's go into executive session. And then, and the mayor would like to join us in executive session.
great.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Mayor?
Yeah. Or nothing else. I mean, I wanted to start arguing with you. But terms of it.
Next,
Oh, did you ever find out what the score was for the final?
No, not yet. I will.
Okay, thanks.
the next thing on the agenda is the Longbrook Park skating rink. Can we just simply have an update on that from the, Mr. Floric?
Mr. Floric has ice skates.
Yes, Madam Chairman. You may recall we had discussed this earlier, and the basic problem was one of liability. How do we protect the town from liability, given the hybrid nature of this type of a project? The Fathers Club, if you remember, was going to build it, maintain it to the best of their ability, and police it to the best of their ability. No, they didn't make that. Okay. Madam Chairman, Mr. Leclerc suggests that we actually do a motion to come out of executive session.
Oh, okay. May I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Ali Kadim, motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Chase. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're out of executive session. Okay, Mr. Floric.
Okay. At any rate, if you might remember, my concern was liability and how to protect the town. And I had suggested that perhaps the Fathers Club could obtain a liability insurance policy, naming the town as an additional insured. At a meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, I found out that the problem with my suggestion was twofold. One, it was somewhat costly to the Wilcoxon Fathers Club. When I say somewhat costly, a few $1,000s. Now, that in and of itself is not a problem because the town could contribute to all or a portion of that.
Attorney Floric, not to interrupt, but as a point of information, we have some information from the Mr. Ciccarelli regarding this that we can perhaps expedite the meeting with.
I'm sorry, you did interrupt. But
I know I did, but I'm trying to expedite the meeting, and Mr. Ciccarelli has some information he can add that will save us some time.
Thank you. Good evening. We had a discussion with part of my team to help facilitate this. We made a decision to extract about approximately $2,000 from the Mayor's Golf Tournament to support the Fathers Club in their expenses to handle the insurance. We're also beginning planning for the next winter to set up the rink to assist them. That's all I have, but we're moving forward. I do not have a budget yet on the cost of the insurance for them.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Question. A number of years ago, they closed down Booth Park to sledding. And then I just found this out over the weekend, because I used to love sledding down there. Well, they allow people to sled down there. How do we handle that liability?
I think we'll have to hire Mountie Police. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a point of information on that came up at the meeting. I was listening to you. If it's done in a public place and if it's recreational, as long as it's a natural structure, there's no liability for the town. It's people going out sledding on their own. But if we build the structure, then we have liability. Did I get it? See, I was listening.
Basically so.
Yeah, the other issue is storage of the rink afterwards. So one of the reasons why we tabled it for next year is that we have to develop a storage plan and move the box that the storage will be into some obscure area where it doesn't affect the aesthetics of the region.
I just wanted to add on, in terms of liability insurance, the people I use are pretty affordable. The mayor can attest to that because he's been helping us out. Great job, by the way, thank you. But it's been going down as we had it. So if the price is too high, you can just check out the guy that I use, if that's possible, to save money. Because it sounds like those are some big numbers. That's much more than I can afford. But,
I'd like to give Mr. Floric the floor again, please.
Okay. The cost was a problem, the Wilcoxon Fathers Club, but that wasn't the biggest problem. As they told us at the meeting, they were having difficulty obtaining anyone willing to insure them. And the reason was because of the hybrid nature of the proposal. They were going to build it, they were going to maintain it to the best of their ability, but only from Wednesdays through Sundays. The rest of the time, it would be open, there would be no control, who comes on it, who skates, who doesn't skate, what happens. And so the conversation drifted from that concept to having the Fathers Club donate the rink to the town, or donate the money to purchase the rink to the town, and have the town, if it was interested in pursuing this project, control the situation, build it, maintain it, police it, so that there would be an element of control. With that element of control in mind, perhaps a liability policy could be obtained. I know that, I don't think we do it anymore, Mr. Mayor, but in the past, I know that the town had a lot of these little insurance policies for specific things. I remember we had bleacher insurance. I never heard of bleacher insurance, but we apparently purchased it to guard against liability from falls out of bleachers. Snow insurance. So that's where the conversation drifted. The last council had approved this kind of a hybrid situation and said, just try to get it done. I don't know from a liability perspective whether we can do that. And so in coming here tonight, my question to you was whether you wanted to have the town basically assume control if the Wilcoxon Fathers Club donated the rink or the funds to purchase the rink.
There's a point of information from that meeting, which I attended, Mr. Dumas was at with the Fathers Club and Attorney Florick. One of the things that came up at that meeting was the precedent set with Victoria Soto Playground, that it was assembled. Jimmy Wiltsey mentioned that they put it together and then they donated it to the town. So they built it, they assembled it. So this has been done before in our town and been done pretty successfully. So they seemed very comfortable with it. Even Mark came in and was like, are you guys sure you want to do this? And they seemed to, as long as it'll go forward, they seemed like this would be something that they wanted to do. And when I talked to them last, that seems like where they were. Mark, have you heard anything different?
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the Fathers Club's gift to the town? It sounds like or to go ahead with that arrangement? Is that what you need, Mr. Florick?
Mm-hmm. Madam Chairman, I think the proper motion is if the town is interested in pursuing this concept, well, you can authorize me to go forward with the Fathers Club on that. It's obviously too late to do this this year. Mm-hmm. So if you want us to go forward with that concept, I will contact the Fathers Club in regards to the donation, whether they're going to buy the rink, whether they're going to buy the additional equipment that goes along with the rink, we'll go from there. But I really need direction as to whether you really want to turn this into a town project as opposed to what we were talking about before.
And make a motion to turn this into a town project and to get it done.
What's point of information, because I'm not clear on this, before we have that point.
There's a second, and then we'll have discussion.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's a second, now discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Kadim, please.
Now you can talk.
Please. No, we, okay.
So now you can discuss it.
Now you can say.
I don't mean to speak for Mr. Kadim, but I don't believe it was an issue of debate. He had a question. It was a point of information.
That's all it was. So since I've been sitting on the rec board for a year or so, almost 2 years, I guess, this has come up so many times with us, and we moved it on to the council. And the questions that were then is still now, the liability thing, And the other aspect of it is, seems like since it's here now, and I'm hearing this information myself personally for the first time, that now they want to turn it over to the town, and they only want to use 2-3 days a week, and then we have to be responsible. That's a lot of responsibility if somebody slip on their head and hurt themselves or possibly die. So, I mean, it's all right to go somewhere and have fun, but you have to understand the responsibility. And I think that probably happened in their mind. They said, well, wait a minute, will somebody get hurt or it'd be a fatality? So let's give it to the town, let it be their problem. So that's something to think hard and long about. I don't know the history on those things. You guys would have to check it. There's other towns who have ice rinks that they put up in the winter. That's something to check into. But as just like you said, for information purposes, like I said, this is the first I'm hearing of turning it over to the town. If the Fathers Club wanted to assume more responsibility, that's a whole different thing. Now we're doing something totally different, which really actually comes through Park and Rec. It doesn't even come through the donation from the Fathers Club. So that's a whole different thing. Just like, should we build a swimming pool? Should we build another basketball court? That's our responsibility. So now if they're doing something like, okay, we'll build the ice rink, but it's your responsibility. I don't remember asking to build the ice rink, so I don't understand that. So that's why I'm saying, just want to be clear about this.
Well, excuse me, my recommendation would be to look at this slightly different, is to do an analysis of the insurance exposure on this event. First off, to look at it, if the town controls the property and it has limited access to the users, what type of cost that would be for us. Secondly, would be that if the Fathers Club were to take it under the auspices of like a semi-quasi-town organization, what would the cost be at that point? And then move forward from that. I don't think you can do anything until you really identify the insurance exposure.
Okay, Mr. Gresco was next, by the way.
Attorney Flork, if we go forward with this, can you please look at Ansonia? I know they just successfully accomplish this, and maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yes, there are a few towns that have done this now, and so it would be my intention to look toward these towns and see how they handle the problem of control, access, liability, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Larry's point is well taken. You'd want to do some type of an analysis on the cost. If we're going to move this along, we really need to do that. It got bogged down from the last council because it was supposed to take place last January. It didn't. They decided they were going to take it up during the summer. That never happened until late October, so we lost a whole year. If we're going to do the analysis, then I think we should do it so that the council will be in a position to move forward expeditiously long before the onset of the next winter.
I have a point of
Just a
information.
point of information.
I have a point of information from the meeting. This is a 2 to 3 year commitment for this rink, 3 years tops. You're not looking at maintaining this rink for an extended period of time. If we want it, we would have to rebuild. So when you keep that in your head about liability insurance and the long-term effects, this is not going to, this could be forever, but in 2 to 3 years, we'll need to rebuild it.
Well, this is my understanding from the Park Rec Department. It's supposed to have been a portable thing where you put it up and take it down, put it up, take it down. So I don't know in terms of that, it being permanent, because it wasn't supposed to be permanent to my understanding. They would put it up just before the snow, just because Chad, the gentleman that's in Public Works, was explaining the best time to do it would be October, set it up, let it sit in the ground for a while, and then be ready for the winter time. And then you pull it back up afterwards. So as far as long-term maintenance, I don't really see that happening if you do it the way that it was initially exposed to us in the rec department. The other part of it is we have already spoke with them, and there's time they were supposed to come and bring compliance to what direction they want to go, and they would always never come back to us. So now that it's at this stage, we kept moving it along, but they would never come in, which is the Fathers Club. So all the analysis you're talking about doing, let's do them and get it done. I'm okay with having the rink, but it has to be done where it's not liable to the town.
Okay, so the motion on the floor now is to authorize the town attorney to go forward with this project. And we had a second to it. Can we call to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 10-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, next part is questions to the town attorney.
Madam Chair, at this time, I'd like to move to waive the rules to take items number 8.7 and 8.8 out of order. Those are a resolution authorizing amendments and transfers in the general fund budget for fiscal year 2015-2016, and resolution authorizing amendments and transfers in the general fund budget for fiscal year 2015-2016.
Second.
Would the town attorney like to comment on those resolutions? I believe not enough notice has been put out for those, for us to be able to move on these.
We're looking at...
I'm sorry, so, wait, first we have to vote to take these out of order. All in favor of taking these out of order?
Aye.
All opposed?
Well, we looked at this issue, Madam Chair, with respect to budget transfers, and that the charter provides for 7 days advance notice to the public. And I don't believe we have 7 days here.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's 6.2.5.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fine. So is there a motion to table these, and, I'm sorry, to postpone these until the March meeting?
Madam Chair, I have a motion to substitute an ordinance that I'm about to hand out that the members of council have been previously provided.
We're getting new chairs. I'm gonna have my students make some. They're not ordinances. His is an ordinance. Mine is.
Just the transfer the general fund budget, not to the WPCA. They have to give 7 days. That's all.
That was my pencil.
Why was it 7 days? It's an interdepartmental budget transfer, that's all it is. It says in the ordinance.
It's not on, it's not on there?
And, finance director. These are, mine's aren't ordinances. This one was first reading.
If the public hasn't seen it.
Nope.
I mean, I hear you, Sue.
As a point of information, while some people are reviewing this, but for the, the peanut gallery, this ordinance that I'm submitting, it would only be for a first reading and to refer it to the ordinance committee. It's not for a final vote, but it would be an ordinance to make certain budget adjustments to balance the budget. We wouldn't be taking a final vote. We'd simply be doing a first reading and referring it to the ordinance committee, because some of the things that we're doing in the budget, we have to do by ordinance and not by resolution.
To note, this was not on the agenda.
Yeah, that's
Mr.
correct.
Leclerc?
It's not on the agenda. This body would have to waive the rules to add this item to the agenda, because this is not properly on the agenda right now. There has to be a motion to waive the rules to add this to the agenda. We'd have a discussion, a discussion, a vote. And if the rules are waived to add it to the agenda, it would be, down for the first time for a reading tonight.
Well, I moved to substitute it, and it is for the same subject matter as the resolutions. I don't believe it would violate FOIA, but if the simply to belt and suspenders this, if I could at this time move to waive the rules to amend the agenda to include this item, if that would make council
That's the better way.
feel more comfortable.
Yes. So is that your motion?
That would be my motion if there's a second.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Yes,
I have a question.
Mr. Gresco?
Would this ordinance that we just received also be subject to the 7-day notice?
No, it would be not. The section 6.2.5 is for
Mr.
transfers.
Gresco, was that a question for the town attorneys?
Yeah, I haven't read it fully yet. Give us a second here.
Passing an ordinance.
Yeah.
For council's information, this is not to pass an ordinance, it is for a first reading.
Thank you.
Also, as a point of information, all the members of the council were provided this, I don't know the exact date, but, more than a week ago, certainly.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, it appears that what Councilman Dumas is trying to do is not actually transfer monies from one department to another tonight. That you can't do because it wasn't posted for a week. It looks like it's being set up as a first reading of an ordinance, which will be referred to Ordinance Committee, which, when it comes back to this council, if the council is going to do this, it will have been posted for a week, and so that defect will no longer be present. So it would be my opinion that if you've added this to the agenda now, it can be referred to Ordinance Committee, because you're not actually taking any action on the transfers of money tonight.
Can I ask a point of information regarding this? For the average person, understanding where the agenda is and what this is, a lot of numbers and things going back and forth. Essentially, what is the difference between what was proposed and what this would do? Is there essentially a difference, or is it the same thing?
It is very similar, except done
It's
in...
very similar.
That was a question for whom?
From whoever, Mr. Dumas handed this out, so I guess if I have permission to ask him, can you do a comparison for me and just simply explain what the difference is?
Well, the first difference is it's an ordinance versus a resolution. Under the charter, we are authorized to transfer, to vote for transfers through a resolution. But what we're actually doing, aside from the WPCA money, is to actually amend the budget, which we're doing through an ordinance. Similar to what we're doing with the Stratford High School bond, we're actually amending the ordinance for the original bond. So this is actually amending the budget instead of simply transferring money around. In terms of the actual numbers, in terms of what is different, a lot of it, honestly, is very similar. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. There's approximately $1.38 million from the WPCA funds that was present in both the resolutions that were offered and in this agenda, in this ordinance. There's also a balance of $2,730,965, which this ordinance is calling for the mayor to basically make unilateral cuts to and to report that back to the council, similar to the $3 million that the mayor is proposing to save from the internal service funds. So those two elements are very similar. The one difference is that there is approximately is $989,035 that is in the budget to transfer to the capital improvement fund, funds that have not been transferred yet that we simply would not transfer. And by doing this and adding that amount, we're actually balancing the budget if we pass this ordinance versus the proposed resolutions. We'd actually be short about $1 million. We wouldn't actually balance the budget. So this one would actually be a balanced budget ordinance should we actually vote for this as it's written when it would come back to us through ordinance. Obviously, it could get amended at ordinance. So, for example, if a councilor wanted to make an additional cut of, $100,000 from, the Department of Redundancy, then the councilman could make that proposal at ordinance and change this so that it is a little different when it gets to us. So there's an opportunity to add extra cuts if there's things that particular councilman or councilwoman think that they want to cut. We can do that at ordinance. There'll also be a public hearing before ordinance, so we'll have an opportunity to get public input on what we should do on the budget, which we're not necessarily getting through a resolution because there's no our rules don't require a public hearing for a resolution. So it is very similar. Honestly, at the end of the day, the key difference is that this balances the budget, and the resolutions that were proposed don't balance the budget.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
the finance director, I think, would like to say something.
Ms. Collier?
Good evening. Actually, the resolutions do balance the budget. The transfers, the net impact of the transfers are zero on the budget. The pickup is $3 million from the Internal Service Fund. I guess you don't have to make this decision tonight. You can either discuss it by making adjustments to this resolution at your next regular or special council meeting, because it will have been noticed for 5 days, or you can take the route of Mr. Dumas and do it through ordinance. I don't think it's necessary to do it that way, but that's your choice. But there are major differences also in Mr. Dumas' ordinance that would need to get discussed, because you're trying to solve a $5.1 million budget hole all in one document. And I applaud you for trying to do that, but I don't believe it's a one-step process. So we just have different approaches on how to handle it. So it'll be up to you whether you want to. Obviously, the resolutions that we have are tabled. You can pull them off the table at any future meeting. You can amend them. You can pass them as is, and we can do more in the future, or you can choose, and at the same time, you can take this ordinance and pass that on to ordinance for public hearing and further discussion and further amendment. You're really not going to get too far tonight. I could spend an hour or two explaining to you the differences between what my goal was and what I think the ordinance's goal is, but it's really not necessary tonight. So.
Mr. Young?
So this, Mark, your plan doesn't do the transfers.
His plan does do some transfers. The numbers aren't exactly the same as mine. Here's what I would like. I would like you to pass this resolution at some point in the near future, because right now we're not doing the monthly journal entry budget transfers from one fund to another to reflect the non-sale of the WPCA, nor are we doing the journal entries to reflect the sale, because we know it didn't happen. So accounting-wise, we're 7 months into the fiscal year, and I still can't properly book my entries, and it's driving me crazy. And in addition to that, we have, if we're going to move $3 million from the Internal Service Fund, I'd like to do that as clean as possible, which means that is something I would like to start booking immediately on a monthly basis to get it clean by June. In addition to that, you can also make other changes through other resolutions or Mr. Dumas' ordinance. But the ordinances that I gave you were very specific. The resolutions I gave you, I tried to break them up to keep it clean. One was specifically just to reverse the impact of the non-sale of the WPCA. And I believe the second one was to address the pickup of $3 million less going into the Internal Service Fund this year. Mm-hmm. Everything else that Mr. Dumas is talking about is in addition to that. And I think you guys would have a lot easier time if we just did it in steps. So that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Florek, then Mr. Chase.
Yes, just to make a point, I think that I agree with Mark that if you do it this way and you add this to the agenda tonight and then refer it to the ordinance committee, it gets you over the defect in the charter that it hasn't been posted for a week, so you can't make the transfers. And maybe my next comment is better served for the ordinance committee, where this will be really discussed, but part of that ordinance, it does more than simply make transfers. It basically orders the mayor to make reductions by a certain date. And I'm not sure that the council has the authority to order the mayor to make reductions by a certain date. But we can fully explore that if it's before the ordinance committee.
Okay, Mr. Chase?
May I just add something procedurally? Chairman, just so you're all clear on what you're voting on in what order. Councilman Dumas moved to suspend your rules to take items 8.7 and 8.8 out of order, which was duly seconded, and it passed by a majority vote. So you have before yourselves item 8.7 followed by 8.8. Councilman Dumas then moved to amend the agenda by adding his ordinance, which he passed out to everyone. That was seconded. We're now voting on that. We're now discussing that, I should say. Once we vote on that, assuming that's voted in the affirmative, that would be added to the agenda for its first reading and then would be referred as necessary to committee. Council will look at that, and we'll come back to this body. At that time, you'll then go back to 8.7, which is the next item on your agenda, followed by 8.8 to make whatever decision you want, to table that, to postpone it. You cannot consider it tonight, given the lack of 7-day notice, and then you'll jump back to the early agenda where you were, just so you understand where everyone understands what we're doing and in what order. So right now, it's Councilman Dumas' motion.
Excuse me, could you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry. So right now, what you have before you is Councilman Dumas' motion to add to the agenda his ordinance amending the annual operating budget ordinance that he's handed out to everyone, which has been seconded, which you're discussing.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'm asking permission to, I guess, address the mayor or have the mayor respond, if that's possible. You're the financial bachelors from Tulsa, right? So you tell me what you think when you look at this and that, and what are you seeing? Because I see your eyes moving, so what do you see?
I see total lack of transparency when I first handed this evening. I hear the word transparency a lot, but yet this is the first time I've seen this. I haven't even had a chance to digest it, look at it, review it, have any input on it to realize any ramifications it may or may not have, authorities it gives, doesn't give, the legal consequences. So the only thing I'd ask is that if something's proposed, could we at least be included in the loop where we can have our department heads look at it, be able to give some input and
So you're not prepared to make any kind of financial or...
I don't know what this is. It's the first time I've seen it. And again, I keep hearing about transparency. This isn't transparent when you're dropping something on my desk the night of the meeting at, what time is it, 11:20 p.m. So I'm not prepared to comment on any ramifications on this.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of information, Sue Collier was provided a copy of that, so your administration was provided a copy, and this is for a first reading.
I was not provided a copy, so I...
Well, your finance director was.
Well, you asked me, and I'm giving you an answer, so...
He's being honest. I apologize. I didn't know you didn't see it.
I did not see it. So, with that being said, I appreciate ideas and people coming forward with suggestions. I mean, that's part of what this body does, and that's something that has been done for years and celebrated here. And you have discussions, open discussions, where people are able to give input. The public hasn't seen this, to my knowledge. It hasn't gone before a public hearing yet. So, if it goes to ordinance, it will have that opportunity. We look forward to hearing what the public comment is and what the ramifications are.
Amend it, strike it.
Okay.
Okay, but we can take this out, right? He's worried about me.
So we have a first and second to add this to the agenda. Let's vote on that.
I
Yeah.
wonder if we can amend this to remove Section 8, which is requiring the mayor to make reductions. Because actually, if we follow this, we will reduce the $5 million by $2,730,965, which leaves a balance of $2,369,035.
As a point of information, if you add up all the numbers from the WPCA transfers and the capital expenditure, the capital improvement line item, and the mayoral line item, they do add up to $5.1 million. But as this is something that we simply can address at ordinance and do the work at ordinance, which is customarily where it's done.
Now, you're talking about the sheet that you just gave us, the
Correct.
ordinance?
It's
On the back of it,
5.1 million in, 5.1 million out.
On the back of it, it says this. Oh, I'm sorry. I misread that. You're saying the mayor had to come up with $2.7 million.
Correct.
So we've come up with $2,369,000. Okay. Well, I'm still saying, it's better to get something cut than nothing cut.
I certainly would agree with that. This is simply to have a first reading and refer to ordinance. So that's where we can do the work and have the debate and have an opportunity for a public hearing. It's that simple. And, it's not requiring a vote now. It's not a final decision. It's a first reading, which is how you usually deal with an ordinance. You have a first reading. It goes to the ordinance committee. And people typically do most of the work at the ordinance committee where they make amendments, et cetera. And then it's then referred back to the full council after the ordinance committee makes a recommendation. This way, we're actually taking some proactive action on the budget, and we have our options open.
Okay, let's, is there any more discussion on this?
I have a
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chase.
Thank you. The original ordinances that are on this, the resolution.
The resolutions were put together by the finance director.
Right. Now, your opening statement was, well, we can't address these, they have to be posted for...
The resolutions have to be posted for 7 days before we can pass them.
Right.
We can table them to the next meeting.
Got it.
Yes.
Why weren't they posted 7 days ago? Why are we just getting this now?
No, they were included in the agenda, which was posted on Wednesday.
Right.
I erred in thinking that that was enough notice. The town attorneys had told me that we were 2 days short.
Right.
So I apologize for that error, but at least we know what the plan would be going forward.
Well, the bottom line is I feel like we've been delaying. I know there's a lot of anxiety on this council, and I think on the part of the public that we need to show that we're moving forward.
Yes,
And I feel like we're treading water, so therefore, nothing's cast in stone. That will be done in the ordinance committee, and I will support the ordinance brought out by Mr. Dumas, and then we can battle this out in the ordinance committee, and I would hope that the chairman of the ordinance committee would call a meeting much sooner than later.
Second.
Well, I just want to say, if we wanted to, we could have a special meeting 2 days from now, although even rescheduling this meeting was difficult, given people's schedules.
that's not an
And we could pass these resolutions and be done with it.
Well, you've got the holidays, Monday.
I know,
Friday.
no, I know.
You've got committee,
Rescheduling.
When are you going to do it? Next week?
We could do it on the 18th, when we're having the special meeting at Stratford High, and just have that one vote then, and add that to the agenda,
Yeah, but we have
if we wanted. Okay, so all in favor of
We're
adding...
recommending this to a ordinance, right?
First, we have to add this to the agenda. We have to add this ordinance to the agenda. So,
To what agenda?
to this current agenda, it's not on the agenda.
I'm just trying to piece all this together, so I want to understand the flow of events. This ordinance, Mark handed out, was given to Sue Collier. It was not given to the mayor. You've never seen it before. No. This resolution, I've seen this before.
Susan Collier helped create this resolution, the
This
finance
resolution will
director,
stand.
the two resolutions.
I've spoken to the mayor that he supported this as well, and that I want to know. And then Mr. Chase's question to you was that you made a mistake and you just didn't put it on.
We got the resolution Monday, finally approved and it had to be checked and double-checked, triple-checked.
Which mistakes, I understand. So I just want to make
And
sure
we
that
put
I
it on the
understand
agenda.
the flow. I want to make sure nothing was kept from, you want to understand that nothing was kept from the mayor by the council. And I don't think anything was intentionally kept from you by this resolution not being posted or anything. I just want to make sure that it's
questioning why it wasn't posted sooner.
right. I just want to make sure that there wasn't a
I'm sorry, Ms. Collier's next.
Okay, first of all, the resolutions that I put together were with the administration, with the blessing of the mayor for our meetings. Separate from that, I did get an email of an ordinance. Mr. Dumas did call me. We had a total difference of opinion about what was necessary, resolution versus ordinance, verbiage versus my numbers, it's fine. We'd look at things differently. It never made the agenda. It was an email that I didn't agree with, and yes, so I didn't know I was supposed to share that with the mayor. It didn't look like I don't understand the direction in that ordinance, which isn't even on your agenda yet, and it never went any further, so I didn't act on it. So I apologize that I didn't share it with the mayor, but it's not my job to give your information to the mayor. Somebody forwarded it to me and asked for my feedback, and I said I don't agree with it, and that's where it ended. Everything I give you, I run through the mayor's office, and that's what you got. I would recommend, if nothing else, please, at your ordinance meeting, when you're going to have your public hearing, maybe you have a special council meeting that night also, very brief, pass the 2 resolutions just to clear up the sale of the WPCA and the internal service fund. Every other issue that you want to deal with as far as giving the mayor direction, giving me direction, cutting the budget, whatever, you can deal with all of that in this ordinance or any other way you see fit. But I wouldn't mix all these different items in one ordinance. It's way too much stuff, and they're all based on, and if you look at my resolutions, the first one changes the hole in the budget from 5.1 to 4 point something. The second one changes it from 4.5 to 1.5. So if you look at them chronologically, you're going to know after you make those 2 steps where you're at as far as other changes you guys want to make. And that's why I laid things out in the way I did with the administration. So as far as communication, the mayor and I are on the same page. Please, and it's your job to communicate with the mayor. It's not your job to communicate to the mayor through me.
All right,
Okay?
Sue, I have a question because I'm looking at your Exhibit A, which was enclosed. I'm going back to your ordinance.
Resolution.
And I thought it said ordinance. Well, whatever. The thing is, you adopted a number of almost every one of the things that were on Mark's ordinance. The 4,800 from WPCA contractual services. You reinstated land use rent of 600,000. You did the transfer that went yearly for 300,000 for management and HR and all that stuff.
I did. I'd like to think of it as Mr. Dumas adopted my recommendations because I put them together prior to that. But either way.
Well, either way.
Yes. Those, and again, because those items have to do with WPCA, non-sale, and the internal service fund. Those portions of his ordinance are very similar. The dollars may have changed a little bit to what I did. The rest of his ordinance is on top of that, separate issues.
My only question, and I think I asked you this before, when there was a transfer from the debt service fund, which started out at $5,100,000, which looked remarkably like the reserve fund for the WPCA, and I wondered if that's what we are talking about, because you're not supposed to touch that if that's it. You took a series of monies out of it, so that at the end it had $1,320,000 left out of the $5 million it started with.
Okay, but again, we're not taking, first of all, you guys haven't passed, we're talking about something that we're not even at yet.
We're in the
so-
discussion about adding this to
but I
the
will
agenda,
answer-
the ordinance
I
to
can
the
answer that question
agenda.
once you get to it, if you want.
Madam Chairman, if you will, I may be able to kind of simplify this a little bit. I think we're having a very long, involved conversation about the same set of numbers, and there's simply 2 different ways of processing them.
ways.
One is the sort of piecemeal approach that Sue has laid out, which we could take up those resolutions at a special council meeting on the 18th, or there's the sort of ordinance path. So I think at this point, we kind of need to
Or
come to a
both.
consensus
And
decision, pick a path, and
And I just want to say this ordinance includes other things.
Right, you could do both, that's what I'm saying. And then if you pass the resolutions, when you get to ordinance, you can take out the pieces of Mark's ordinance that have already been dealt with and deal with everything else that he recommends in his ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Chase.
Can we refer the resolutions to the ordinance committee, even though they haven't been posted, haven't had sufficient time to be posted?
They will have had sufficient time by then, but it would have to be a special council meeting, called a council, even though all 10 of us will be there. It will have to be called a special council meeting within,
At the same night, you could do it right before.
Yep. Okay.
So you just can't go directly to the ordinance committee?
It's not an ordinance, so the resolutions have nothing to do with ordinance. That's
All
the
right.
trick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, can we?
Let's move this.
Okay, let's have a vote on whether we want to add to the agenda the ordinance. Mr. Gresco?
Pass.
I'm sorry?
Pass.
Okay, we'll come back to you. I don't think you can.
Yes, he can.
Okay.
You may
Now,
pass,
Mr.
yeah,
Hartman?
on a pass, you would come back to that individual.
You want, it's whether you want to add this to
Stand up and be-
add his ordinance to the agenda.
Yes.
She didn't hear you.
Yes.
Mr. Kadim?
Get back to me. Pass.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Yes.
I hate to admit it, but I wasn't paying attention. What was the motion?
It's whether the ordinance is added to the agenda.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Motion, Mr. Gresco?
Yes.
Mr. Kadim?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, second. The second thing is whether we want to refer this to the ordinance committee. Okay, is there a motion to refer this to the ordinance committee?
I would move to refer this to the ordinance committee as stated in the actual document, that this be, move
Okay.
that this be the first reading of the above titled ordinance, and that it hereby is hereby dispensed with as copies thereof have been previously furnished to the members of the town council, and that the same be adopted as a first reading and referral to the ordinance committee for a public hearing.
Second.
And as we've debated this quite adequately, I would move to call the question.
No? Okay. Okay, the clerk has a copy. Okay, I'm sorry. You made the motion. Is there a second for his motion?
I believe Mr. Chase, I believe Councilman Chase seconded it.
Okay. Discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving this to ordinance?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. Okay.
Madam
then-
Chair, I would move to table item 8.7 and 8.8 and would leave it to the chair's discretion to schedule a special meeting if she so deems it appropriate.
Okay, motion, is there a second for the motion to table?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Okay. Now we're back to the normal agenda. We were at questions to the town attorney. Are there any questions to the town attorney
Don't,
at 11:38 at night?
don't ask any questions.
I have a question for the town attorney. It's a very quick one. I'm more asking for an opinion than anything else. As you know, there's a special election planned for I believe, a zoning seat, and I would be interested in an opinion from the town attorney whether Mr. Henrik, who is currently, I believe it will be the Republican candidate, whether he's eligible to be the candidate under Section 32-1 of the code.
I've heard of that issue, and I'm looking at it. I'll have to look at it a little more.
That's all I'm asking for.
Yep.
I'm not asking for your answer today.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions to the town attorney? No? Okay, now, questions to the mayor or staff? Are there any questions to the mayor? Yes, Mr. Llewellyn?
Yeah, I have one. And Mr. Mayor, you may need Sue Collier for this, but with regards to the annual CIP funding that's bonded, is that all usually collected as one package, or are those kind of sold off individually?
Susan, do you want to come up and answer this?
Oh, no problem. The sort of annual CIP bonding that takes place, it's usually a number roughly between $6.5 and $8 million. Is that done like collectively, or is that done sort of project by project?
I hope that's the number of the CIP. It's been much higher than that every year. So
Okay, maybe that's
please,
just a piece
no.
of it
So
that I'm
shoot for
seeing.
6. I'll be thrilled beyond belief. When you pass the CIP, you get 2 ordinances. One is appropriating the money to spend on the capital projects, and the second is authorizing the town to go out to bond. We don't have to go out to bond at that moment for that money, but what we do is each year you pass a plan, and you pass an appropriation ordinance and a bonding ordinance for equipment, and the same thing for improvements. So then we make a decision each year as the projects get close to getting started or getting finished, then we go out to bond for that money. So Stratford High, obviously the appropriation process started a long time ago. I'm sorry, but it's a good example. But we have not gone out to bond yet on it because we haven't spent a lot of money on it yet. Other projects like road reconstruction, we go out to bond every year or 2 or every 18 months whenever our cash flow starts to go down. So a lot of that money's already been spent. We use our own money in the bank, and then by bonding, we pay ourselves back. So each year when we go out to bond, it's a combination of 30 or 40 different projects that have been approved over time. And next time we have a finance and claims meeting, I hope we have one, I can go through an official statement with you guys, and it shows you authorized but unissued debt, and it's a list of all prior capital projects that have bonded projects that haven't yet been bonded. So that's how we work it. It's a combination.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was getting to. I'm well aware that on a sizable project like the Vicky Soto School or like the Stratford High
Right, and those
School,
we did in
you kind of
pieces.
go out quarterly as you know what your anticipated expenses are going to be. I was thinking more along the lines of the annual several $100,000 to $1.5 million jobs. You don't bond those individually. They're sort of collected into groups.
Oh, it's all collective, right.
Okay.
But within
That's what I was looking for.
Right, within the bond, each project has its own debt schedule because they all have different lifespans. Roads are one, reconstruction is one lifespan, resurfacing is another. But then when you put all those separate loan documents together, you get a master debt schedule, and that's what we pay off of.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
you, Susan.
I have a question for the mayor and the staff. We've heard about the Bunnell Fieldhouse funding for it, where the project has gone from 200 to 600, 860,000 or so. And we've also heard about special accounts that the money for that will be coming from. And those of us who are at the Board of Ed Liaison Committee heard that the Board of Ed hadn't quite approved all of those transfers. So in terms of that project, where exactly is the money coming from? How is it being financed? And how is the Board of Ed approving these transfers? And what projects, some of that money was coming from improvements. So what other improvements are not happening because the monies will be diverted to the project?
That's a lot of questions.
I'm sorry. There's just
like section A, B, C, D, and E.
You're used to
The Board of Ed, the original project was $200,000 for the Bunnell Fieldhouse renovations. I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but it went from 200 to 600.
Right, the last council.
600 to 650. If it's gone above 650, no one's told me about it yet. Okay, so I haven't seen it since.
Over 850 now.
Okay, I did not see those numbers. But Larry Ciccarelli and I did meet with the superintendent and Clarence Zachary, the COO, and they're considering it, but they're not the ones that had requested the increase in spending. So we did show them a list of Board of Ed, previously appropriated Board of Ed bonding accounts with balances available, for not necessarily available for that, but with balances still available to spend. And I believe they're going to consider whether or not they can afford to move the money from school improvements, safety and security, whatever the balances are that are left. They're going to make a decision, I guess, about whether they can afford that. And I also thought they were going to go back to one of these building needs committees or subcommittees and see if they could not go for the, what'd you say, a Porsche or BMW? If they could kind of maybe go for the Cadillac or something instead, as though that's the middle ground, I guess. Not for me. I think they should go for a Subaru, but that's just me. So I think they're looking for a compromise, but I don't have any details beyond that. I have a list of accounts, but, oh, sorry, Larry. I'm so sorry.
Yes, Susan Collier's correct in that most of that story. We did have a discussion with Dr. Robinson and Clarence Zachary, and in that discussion, it indicated that the project probably was around $850,000. We did discuss with them the indicated accounts that had been identified to us through Public Works. They looked at those accounts and were going to come back to us to identify what accounts were viable from their perspective that they could use for the project. So it was my understanding that the project's size was going to be matched with the available resources they had. So whatever resources they had, that the project was going to be scaled to match those resources.
I guess my question, just to follow up to that, isn't so much whether monies can be used from those accounts to this, but the question also has to do with the other priorities that those accounts that we're going to those accounts were going to support.
I agree. That's
and
why
what priorities are not being supported.
Yes, Madam
because
Chairperson. Yes,
I
I called the meeting with the Board of Ed. It wasn't the other way around, and I wanted to make sure that they had identified those specific accounts that they feel comfortable and viable, that did not detract from any other important resources through the Board of Ed's budget.
Ms. Manis?
So, we've got these accounts in the BOE that have all this extra money in them that they're saying we can use for field houses and things. My concern and my constituents' concern is to get the schools going, right, and to make things happen. But my bigger concern is all the money that goes into the Board of Education as a line item, that's all we get to do. But it seems to me that there's money laying there just waiting to be used. So why is it such an increase and an increase and an increase? Is that true? Is that what I'm hearing, that there's money just sitting there?
You're looking at the capital budget, and the capital budget is a little different. You have bonded monies, you have monies that are allocated for a specific school and maybe a project within the school. So any time that money there's some residual left over, it needs to be allocated for that school. So something else has to occur within that school that those proceeds can be used for. Because they're earmarked specifically and bonded specifically for that school. So that's the problem. They can't just be, pulled and drawn into another direction, another school, or even through the general fund for the town. They have to stay resident within that those set parameters.
They factored into, and this may be a question for both of you, is that factored into the number that we're then presented with, or is that extra whipped cream on top of that number that they just have?
I can't comment on it. I don't see I don't get involved in their budgetary process at all. We end up just getting a one-line item that they need to be funded. So.
Mike, it's just a question for, the public to ask, I think, and I will ask it as well, and I'll ask it again. Are those numbers factored into the bottom line budget for new things that want to be done? Or is it just sitting there? Because that's
Yeah, go ahead.
taxpayers' money.
The line item that the Board of Ed gets is for operating expenses on an annual basis.
Okay.
So what we're discussing right now is totally outside of that annual money
Oh,
to
okay.
them. This is capital monies that get appropriated over time to maintain buildings that the town owns that are used by the Board of Education.
Okay.
So it's coming out of our debt service, but it does get reported with the state in the, E1 or whatever those, we have to report to the state how much general fund money is spent on Board of Ed things. But there are buildings, and these are capital improvements and capital investments in our buildings. So it's not like this money is just floating out there. They need money for IT structure, they need money for safety and security. So if they they come up with an estimate for how much money they need, and there's a little bit of an overage, that money might get moved depending on the type. If it says renovations, then they'll just find their next renovation project, the beginning of it will start with the funds they have available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chase?
You said the same.
These projects, they're bonded, correct?
They're authorized for bonding.
Authorized for bonding, and earmarked for the Board of Education.
Yes.
Okay. Can they be used for non-Board of Education projects?
No, not the way they are. We would have to rescind that or change the ordinance and go back and redo it. And there's no reason to do that because there's always a need on both sides.
I'm not suggesting we do that.
Yeah.
I'm just wanted.
It's more work for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Each side, there's so many projects in the pipeline. It's good to have residual money. It means that the project went smoothly and you didn't spend it. Therefore, the next time the Board of Ed has a technology account, okay? And they spend it prudently, and they have an account. Once it starts getting down to a low number, the following year they ask for another account. We use every penny in that old account because we cut their checks for them for this stuff, and then they just move right into their next account. And it's the same thing with renovations and improvements.
Thank you.
And safety.
One last thing is, as a matter of practice, and this goes for the town as well as the Board of Ed, those accounts need to be analyzed on an annual basis to see what residual are in certain accounts and where they can be used and pooled to worthwhile needs through the Board of Ed. That's part of the management tool they need to do from those accounts.
Thank you, Larry.
I just want to ask one other question while you're up there. There's the issue with the Nichols School turnaround and the traffic study, and monies were allocated for that?
I don't have any info on that.
That's actually Sue Collier would be probably best to answer that.
I promised Councilwoman Manis, and I dropped the ball on that. So.
Thank you for being honest.
You're welcome.
Was it a traffic study for a specific school, you said?
Nichols.
And this was the Nichols School turnaround, in order
Wasn't
to have a
that- I thought that-
turnaround?
Was that done a while ago or no?
Oh, no, we're,
Well, I can send you their current list of available capital money. I have it. I look at it, it's not annual. We actually look at it all the time because the Board of Ed calls me all the time. They want to know what their available balances are. And we're constantly monitoring all the capital accounts because it's important. So if that project was approved in a prior year, then the money is still there. And I can look it up for you right now.
I have information with that. I know the former chairman questioned, and I don't know if this can be done, but that the money specifically for that Nichols School turnaround was not going to be one of the funds that was taken to put into the field house per se.
It definitely wasn't. It's
It
not on that
definitely
list.
wasn't.
Nope, not on that list.
Okay.
No,
That was a question.
absolutely not. This was mostly, the bulk of it was like a general building renovation account.
And in two AC accounts
Right.
for old air conditioning projects at Bunnell High School. There was a project in 2013 and 2014 or
Something like that, yeah.
there.
What are you looking for?
okay, so in terms of that will be, you will be providing us in order to get movement on that?
Well, we're actually letting the Board of Ed take the lead. It's up to the superintendent, I believe, to work with her group to decide. This is money we've already appropriated to them for specific projects. So they usually work with either Public Works or. That's what she said. Right. So in this case, the superintendent wasn't even on board yet. This project was moving along, and I do apologize. It was $850. I'm just so tired I couldn't remember when I said $650, so I apologize. But like I said, we've met with them. They're going to speak to whoever is on board with this project, and they're try to decide if it's still necessary for them and scale it down. But beyond that, I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe we have any more say in that project. We've already...
In the Nichols School project?
No, that or the...
Or are you talking back to the Bunnell Fieldhouse?
The Bunnell, aren't you talking about the Bunnell Fieldhouse?
I was asking about Nichols School.
Nichols School.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think that's been touched at all. I'm going to go look at that up right now. Sorry, I got mixed up.
Okay, I guess it would be nice if the mayor can make sure that that project goes forward, the Nichols School turnaround, so people are not clogging up Nichols Avenue anymore.
Especially before the next voting. Point of order. Point of information. Could
Yes.
you please tell me where we are in the agenda?
We were in questions to the mayor and staff.
Page 5.
Item number 6, page 5.
Okay. Okay.
Number 6, page 5.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question while
Okay.
everybody's getting reoriented. I didn't write down the date when you were telling us the date for the FOI training. What was that date and time again?
Hang on one second.
I have it. March 28th at 5 p.m.
And now,
In the council chambers.
I'll bring
now,
candy.
now, Mr. Mayor, are you planning on attending that?
I don't know at this time. It's set up for the council, but I'll try to stop by.
Well,
for a little bit.
I would, and...
I know you love FOI,
Well,
and you are the FOI councilman here in Stratford, so I'll
I-
give every effort to go.
I would note, and Attorney Leclerc actually handled this matter, there are 2 decisions that ordered training. One of them was directed towards you. So I'd be happy to get a compliance order from the Freedom of Information Commission if you don't want to attend, but I think it might be helpful.
Okay, well, I appreciate your support in that, and hopefully we'll see you on the 28th.
Okay, Susan?
Yeah, actually, our Susan Pollock's qualified to do that training too, and she's done it for us in-house in the past, so.
Good.
That'll, the $150,000 for the nickel turnaround is still in place. It would have to run through the mayor and myself to transfer it, and I know we don't remember, and not a penny has been spent yet.
Yeah, but I just want to see it get moving.
So it's still there? No? It's all still there.
Okay,
Madam
Mr. Fresco.
Chairwoman,
Yes.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
I had I opposed because I have a young man that I was speaking about putting on park and rest. Could we just get this gentleman in there? Because he's been serving for so many years. I mean, Matt Salerno, he's a good guy.
I'm sorry, first we have to vote on the motion to adjourn. Okay, there was a motion to adjourn.
I don't want to adjourn.
I second it.
There was a, second to the motion, so now we vote. All in favor?
I don't want to, no.
And how many noes were there?
No.
No.
Are there 4 noes?
No,
No, we got another one here.
no, I'm a no.
1, 2, 3, 4,
No.
5, 6 noes. Okay.
Madam
We are
Chairman,
not adjourning.
at this
Yes.
time, I would like to move to waive the rules to take item 7.3.2 out of order.
I second it.
We could,
If we're
Madam
doing that,
Chairman,
we can go through some of these.
we could go
quickly.
through this very quickly
just hammer
if,
through this.
if everyone would just sort of relax.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm relaxed. I'm ready.
Madam Chairman, I think you should, all right, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
7.2,
Well, let's talk, yes.
all right.
Well, actually, we have to do Stratford Army Engine
Yeah,
Plant.
okay.
Do you take your motion off the table?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Stratford Army Engine Plant. Are there any updates, Mr. Mayor? Stratford Army Engine
You
Plant?
didn't ask for that.
Army Corps is still doing their analysis. They actually did an on-site inspection last week. I met them at the facility. It was pouring rain out. We were outside and on the dike, And they're going to do an analysis, finish it up, hopefully by the end of this month. But they did come and do a site visit here in Stratford, which is good news.
Okay, that is good news. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.2, Board of Assessment Appeals. Mr. Young?
Dick Brown, oh, I'm sorry, Dick Brown.
Okay,
like a
Mr. Wally Kadim.
Did I have it wrong?
No, you got it right. Dick Brown? You nominate Dick Brown?
Sorry, I nominate Dick Brown for that position.
Okay, is there a second?
Madam
Okay,
Chairman, which Dick Brown are we talking about, please?
Richard Brown Sr.
Okay. Senior. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, passes 10-0. Committee Appointments Beautification Committee.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to place the nomination name of Indiana Harden
Okay.
as an electorate member to the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Committee.
Second.
Who seconded? Okay, Mr. Gresco seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Parks and Recreation Committee for the
Madam Chairman?
electorate member.
Madam
Mark,
Chairman,
Mark's,
Matthew
Sir Serlano.
Salerno.
Yeah, that's Wally Kadim putting it out.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of Matt Salerno being the electorate member for Parks and Recreation Committee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. There are 2 alternates on that committee. One is a Republican and one is a Democrat. Would anybody like to
Madam
offer?
Chairman, I'd like to nominate Carol Calzone as the Democrat alternate and Gary Bauer as the Republican alternate.
One correction, it's Sarah Calzone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sarah.
Okay, is there a second to that? To have-
Second.
That,
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
All opposed?
Okay,
Okay.
Public Safety, Wally.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a nomination? I move we table.
Great.
Safely, I'm sorry.
For the public safety?
Yeah, there's a gentleman, I didn't get his name yet, you gotta forgive me,
Okay,
so I have
that's
to
fine.
come back to that.
Okay,
That's
next
okay.
meeting.
Move
Thank
to
you so much.
table, all in favor of table, is there a second for the move to table? All in favor of tabling that?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Modifications to council rules of procedure, can this come off the table? Can
I
get-
move we remove this from the table.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of taking this off the table?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, no? Okay. Okay, Mark says no, passes 9 to...
I would like to make a change to the rules of procedure, which was, we were going to eliminate the word tape. However, because there are some tapes still being used, and they're also migrating over to the digital, I would just like to substitute the word substitute to voice recording instead of tape, which would cover both.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Benel Fieldhouse,
Madam Chairman, I move we remove this from the table.
okay. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No.
Madam Chairman,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there were 2 noes to that?
Noes, yeah.
To moving it to table, there were...
2 noes.
So leave it on yes.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
has it been removed from the table?
I'm sorry, we were...
Benel Fieldhouse.
Oh, I'm sorry, we were removing it from the table. So I thought you just said that you were tabling it.
No. I'm moving to remove it from
To
the
remove it
table.
to the table. All in favor of taking this off the table?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay,
Aye.
it's off the, you are opposed to
Nay,
take,
yes. I want to leave it on the table.
you want to leave it on the table? Okay, so
Okay.
it's off the table 9-1?
Okay, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I move we strike Benel Fieldhouse, agenda item 7.42. I move we strike it from the agenda.
I second that.
Mark seconded. All in favor of striking this from the agenda?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
No, it goes to the Board of Ed.
You are opposed from striking it? Okay.
Huh?
Yeah.
And they're wrong. It's their money. They can...
It passes 9-1. The ordinance amending Chapter 172, Article Fats, Oils. Mr. Young,
I motion to
Take it off the table?
take it off the table, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, the second to take that off the table. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, and Mr. Young?
I motion to send it to a second reading. Isn't that what we want?
No, you're resolving that the second reading of the above entitled ordinance be dispensed with?
Oh, it's dispensed with.
Yes.
As- Okay.
Second it.
And this would be approved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Okay.
7.5.2,
A point of procedure, that,
Got the file from Tim, I'm looking at it.
we had the second reading, where customarily would be, that's on the table now, and we'd be voting on it to pass it.
oh, okay.
If we want to pass it, that's fine, or we could put it right back on the table.
We took it off the table.
Yes, but
Put it
now
off
it's on the table.
We dispense with the
had a-
second reading,
dispense with
and
the second
then,
reading, and now it's on the table to be voted on.
Right.
okay. All in favor,
What do we,
do you make a motion to vote on this?
No, I don't, I'm just, it's a point of procedure.
Bill did.
I-
No. I thought he did.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor of approving?
well, what do you, just for the record, what do
Discussion.
you,
I'm
vote-
sorry?
what are you voting to approve? The ordinance? Because I don't know anyone has
We're
seen this
approving the
ordinance.
ordinance.
This is
We-
item,
Tabled back
Count-
in 2014,
I'm
so I'm not
sorry,
sure
one at a time.
what you're voting on. You should be clear what you're doing.
Okay.
on the record.
We are voting to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 172. Sewers, Article 11, fats, oils, and
This would
Grease
have been the
treatment.
second reading.
As a point of information, this has been on the agenda since prior to the WPCA transaction, and it was basically deferred by the prior council indefinitely because they thought that there would be no WPCA by this time. And this is just to be in compliance with, various regulations in terms of putting fats, oils, and grease into our beautiful sewer system.
Okay.
Okay. So we have the motion to approve this?
Yes.
Yes?
Second.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Did it already, but that's okay, Phil.
Okay, it's finally off the agendas in the future. Resolutions regarding performance financial audits of the Office of the Town Attorney and Department of Public Works. Mr. Gresco?
I make a motion.
To approve a performance.
It's late.
It's late.
I make a motion regarding the performance financial audit of the Department of Public Works of up to no more than $20,000.
Second.
A point of procedure, we haven't taken this off the table yet.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I move that we take this off the table.
Okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking this off the table?
Aye.
All opposed?
And I second Joe's motion.
Okay. All in favor of approving a performance audit of the Department of Public
There's
Works?
some debate on this. Before we actually move on this, and this is something that perhaps we want to table, because there's no actual resolution for any of us to read, so we don't know what we're actually resolving to do, and that there are some questions about the audit in terms of what the scope of the audit is, who is going to do it, how much it's going to cost. Presumably, there's going to be an RFP.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions, and although I think this is an admirable idea, I think it's also 12:08, and this is something that perhaps we should table, and I'm going to move to place it back on the table.
Second.
If I may comment, I think Councilman Dumas is correct. You don't have copies of any resolution. You have no idea what you're voting on. There's no notice of what this is. The town attorney's office hasn't looked at it to see even if you have the authority to do whatever this nebulous audit is. I
And
think
as a
it's
point of
correct.
information, this was on the agenda last month, and that point was raised, and we still don't have a resolution a month later.
Okay.
So that's why
Okay,
I'm
so
moving
there's
to
a
table.
motion to put this on the table. There's a second to that motion. All in favor of tabling?
Wait a minute, what was the
Aye.
what motion?
7.5.
I have moved item number
7.5.
7.5.2,
5.2
resolutions
to the
regarding
table.
performance of financial audits of the Office of the Town Attorney and Department of Public Works. That is on the table, and I am moving to place it back on the table,
And I have
which was
seconded.
seconded by, I believe, Mr. Llewellyn.
Okay. And all in favor of placing this back on the table?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
I'd just like to make one comment.
Yes.
I believe the financial audits are already done. and they're in the financial report that we
Right.
received.
The motion was simply for a performance audit.
I know that, but it says
Okay.
performance/financial.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think that's a problem. No one knows what this is, as Commissioner Dumas raised.
Okay, next time it will be clearer. The Stratford, there were a few tabled appointments. Stratford Housing Partnership.
Madam Chairman? I would place the nominations, the name for the Stratford Housing Partnership, Kent Miller, David Salick, Peter Wood.
Okay. All in favor? I'm sorry, is there a second?
I second it, Dave Harden.
Yeah, you have to, to the chairman, you
Do
have
we
to
need
have
to take these off the table first?
Exactly, thank you.
Oh, Jesus, right.
Okay,
Madam
motion,
Chairman, I move that we take, Madam Chairman, I move we take 7.61, 7.63, 7.64, 7.6, no, that stays on the table.
can we do them one by one?
Well, we could, all right. I move we take 7.61 off the table.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Madam, Jesus Christ.
Okay,
Still have
all in,
short beach.
No, we have
all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Ask for, before you
All opposed?
vote, I think you should specify what is the effect of your adjournment. Are you going to continue the agenda where you've left off at your next regular meeting? I think there has to be some clarity. Recess, adjournment, how those terms are used under Roberts. I think you just shouldn't leave it hanging.
Okay.
So what it means to adjourn, what's the intention?
Okay, the effect of adjournment would be to start the next meeting with these items. However, the effect of adjournment would also be that we would not be accepting the grants that are at the end of the
We need
agenda
to do
right
that.
now.
I'd like to, want me to read some? I think I'd like to move that we go through these as quickly as we
Okay.
possibly can and try to move it forward.
There's no discussion on adjournment. I just explained the impact of it. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Chair votes no because of the grants. Okay, 7.6.1.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we take out of order items number 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6.
I think, if I may just, did Mr. Gresco make the motion? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Take out of order 761, 763.
I took out
Second.
8.4, 8.5, 8.6, the grants.
Yes.
I thought there was a motion, though, that was before you, when there was a motion to adjourn made by someone to take 761, 763, 764.
That was off the table, but then that never got voted on. So we need to vote on that first?
So we're clear, that, was that seconded, that motion?
No.
Yes.
It was?
I believe it was.
Oh,
Then there was
okay.
a motion to adjourn, which you're correct, took precedence. I think you have to go back to the pending motion, take 761, 763, and 764
Okay.
from the table first, unless the movement withdraws that motion and the second withdraws, and then Mr. Gresco can proceed.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of that.
How you should proceed is, there was a motion that's been moved and seconded to take 761, 763, and 764 from the table that was moved and seconded. You either have to discuss and vote on that unless the movement wants to withdraw that motion, as does the second. Then Mr. Gresco can proceed, or someone else can proceed.
I think it was Mr. Chase's, not Mr. Dumas.
Someone behind me,
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay.
I withdraw my motion to remove from the table 7.61, 7.63, and 7.64. I believe that's where I stopped.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Second or
now we have a movement to take items 8.4, 8.5, 8, is there an 8.5?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
8.5, 8.6, out of order. Okay.
A second.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor of taking those out of order? Aye. All opposed? Okay. 8.4.
I make a motion to accept the Connecticut Department of Social Services for Counseling Service grant sponsored by the Honorable Stratford Town Council.
I second it.
Should I be reading it?
It's not required. You don't.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I already
second?
there's a
seconded.
second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. It passes
Make a
10-0.
motion. I'll make a motion that the Southland Community Center Summer Surrey Scholarship be accepted.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 8.6.
Madam Chairwoman, I make a motion to pass a resolution supporting the application and contract for the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection Clean Vessel Act grant program for the operation and maintenance of the Stratford pump-out boat,
I'll
sponsored
second
by our
that.
town council.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Okay, those three are taken. We're done with that. Now we're back to, unless there's a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to take the 7.6.1 off the table for the Stratford Housing Partnership.
Okay,
I make a motion to take as well 7.6.3 Sikorsky Memorial, 7.6.4 Waterfront Harbor Management Commission off the table as well.
okay, thank you. 7.6.1, 7.6.4. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 7 points, okay.
Madam Chairman, I move Stratford Housing Partnership members Kent Miller, David Salick, Peter Wood.
Okay,
I'll
is there-
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 7.6.4,
Madam Chairman, I nominate David Salick to the position of alternate member to the Water Harbor Management Commission.
Do we have to take
all in-
that off? the
is there a second?
I already took it off the table.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
That's
Okay.
that.
Okay, Madam Chairman, I move we take the Short Beach Commission off the table.
Okay, is there a second? We're taking the Short Beach Commission nominations off the table?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking that off the table?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay,
Madam Chairman, I place a nomination the following names. For A, replacement of Ray Berry, David Pansack. For B, extending the term of Scott Barksdale. And C, it's your call.
I'm not making the motion.
I nominate Sean Haubert, and I also nominate Patty Sperling for replacement of Scott Barksdale.
I'd like to separate this question. Okay, let's do, can I, is there a motion to separate the question? So we
Yeah,
don't-
well, I'll redeem my motion, we can second.
To separate.
Separate.
Okay, is there a second to separate?
I rise to a point of procedure. Mr. Chase made a nomination for item A and B, and
Yes. And
not for item C.
And not for item C.
Right.
Then the Councilor Manis made a nomination for C and B. I think we have to
Yeah.
take the first nomination on B procedurally before we can even consider that second nomination for that same spot.
Right.
I'd like to make a point of procedure. Can we do a vote of plurality, where we're not voting against or for anyone, we're just voting for them by name? So there is no vote. We have two names nominated, and we just place a vote.
No, you have to have a name, there's a resolution, you have to have a specific name for a specific term under A, B, and C. I don't
You
quite
can't
follow.
nominate two people?
You can nominate two people under Robert's rules, but you have to you have to deal with the first nominee before you move to the second nominee.
Well, you can do a plurality vote, where you vote for both of them, and everybody just casts one vote for each person. Can't
That's not in Robert's rules, so,
No.
and that's not in our rules.
What? What?
Can we-
Point of information. As chairman of the Short Beach Commission, and just elected chairman of the Short Beach Commission, I have not polled the existing members as to whether or not they've decided they want to stay on, nor have I seen any resumes or any application information for any of the persons mentioned tonight. So I motion to table all three of these.
Second.
I
All-
move to
All in
adjourn.
favor of tabling?
Seconded on the motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first.
I move to adjourn, which is a privileged motion.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Just so I'm clear on the record, is the intention of the motion to adjourn at your next meeting to continue the agenda where you left off, specifically under new business, because everything else would remain on the table unless removed?
Okay. We will be.
Yes, that-
The implications of adjourning are that we will start our next meeting where we left off.
Which would be with new business.
No, I think it would simply be an adjournment, and the items that are on the table will remain on the table, which
That's
everything else that there is on the table.
That's correct.
And the chair can put whatever she wants on the agenda to make up the difference.
Correct.
So we don't have to actually start midstream. We don't have to start the meeting at item number 7.6.7.
Well, no, because they would be on the table. You're correct. Those are going
So
to remain
it would
there
simply
until...
straight up motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute. Is the motion to adjourn, can you comment on that?
No, you cannot is not debatable.
Okay, because I think it's a shame that we're just going to let the binding arbitration contract with the Board of Education just slide. I think we should stand up and be counted, frankly, but
Yes, I'm sorry.
The
Did
motion's
we
on the-
take the vote to adjourn?
There's been motion been made, and it has been seconded, and I'm not clear whether it has been voted upon, so we could call the vote.
that's not the point.
Yeah, I
It should
know.
be- It should, you know.
I think everybody's so...
Let's vote on it. Let's get it done, right?
Did we already vote on that, Brian? Did we?
We haven't
We
voted
did
on the
not
motion
vote
to
on the
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Get it
Thank
done.
you. Because I
Okay,
heard
Mr.
It's been moved and seconded, and we need to vote on it, and it's
Okay.
not a debatable motion.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'm opposed to adjourning.
Nay.
Opposed.
All opposed to adjourning?
Nay.
Opposed.
Okay, how many are opposed? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then let's keep going.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I'd like to take an item out of order, please. I'd like to address first item number 9.4.
I think we're still on item 7.6.6 unless someone moves to table that and we have a vote on that, which I think is where we were before. There was a...
I move to table it.
And we voted yay. We voted aye to table it.
We didn't actually vote
No.
to table it. I interrupted that vote with the motion to adjourn, which is a privileged motion and takes precedence over that,
That's
the motion
correct.
that was on the table. And now that the nominations for the Short Beach Commission are still on the table, and now I'm moving to table them.
Second. Okay, the table?
All
And
in favor
motion
of
is-
tabling
Aye.
the Short Beach Commission?
Aye.
Aye.
They were already tabled, right? In- Yep. That was tabled. Okay. Mr. Gresco?
Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to take item 9.4 out of order and address it right now.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor of
Aye.
taking 9.4 out of order?
Aye.
All
Madam-
opposed?
Madam Chair, I'm
Passes
recu-
10-0. Let me
I'm,
finish.
no, I'm recusing myself from that vote, and I'm recusing myself from the subsequent vote on this particular agenda item as my wife is employed by the Board of Education.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the Stratford Board of Education and Stratford Education Association Binding Interest Arbitration Award?
So moved.
Okay. is
I'll
there a
second.
Second.
Okay, discussion? I just want to say that this is a binding arbitration award, so if we were to not accept it, it would go back to arbitration, and there is no guarantee that the monetary value would change. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of accepting this?
Aye.
All opposed?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Pretty clear.